Hello there. You thought it was all over for the Tories? Well, it is now. I said yesterday that there was a seventh reason why the Tories are toast, and that comes at the end of this video. But in the meantime, it's all over for the Tories because they're going as woke as they can. Yes, their political candidates are to be given diversity lessons on white resentment and unconscious bias, says the Telegraph. That's right, they will get the very training that the Tory government said it would stop civil servants getting. But this new Tory training will ensure that they believe that the UK is inherently racist and will therefore continue to insist on the likes of the civil service being also indoctrinated, so as to keep the woke gravy train on the rails. But will this be aimed at all candidates, or is it designed to make those from the offending majority ethnic background feel bad about themselves? I see a further explosion in the employment of diversity officers coming down the pipeline, much like the old political officers in the USSR, ruling by dividing and checking your thinking while adding nothing of value. And any claim the Tories make about wanting to bring back free speech and unbiased education to our schools and universities will be blown apart by this news. The Tories really are the WEF in disguise, aren't they? And I wonder if a minister's mate is providing the training. And do those Tory party members realise they are probably paying for it via their membership fees? These enemies within really do hate the vast majority of people living in the UK with a passion, don't they? All because the vast majority were born here and are of the wrong heritage. And sadly, people will still want to vote for them. But all you'd be voting for is another form of the Labour left. And if the polls are to be believed, that is exactly what you're going to be getting anyway. So why not take this as an opportunity to try something fresh? But further, by attending these courses, are they not admitting that all their white candidates are racists and need to be educated? Isn't that the premise of all woke diversity training? But all they'll end up doing is alienating their core vote even further while attracting no or few votes from their new target demographic. And while the Tories are busy destroying themselves, the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy is promising to forge a new security pact with the European Union. And he wants the UK to work more closely with Brussels on cyber threats, energy security and organised crime. But Labour won't take us back into the single market, he said. And he also said in his speech at Chatham House that Labour would create a Britain reconnected. Now, whenever politicians talk about defence and security pacts with the EU, I take it as meaning they want to outsource some foreign policy as well as shed some of the defence budget and rely on European countries to pay to defend us. You know, like some of the NATO members that traditionally didn't fork out the required 2% of GDP on defence because the US was piling the money into it and the Brits could always be relied on to pay their fair share anyway. And any such move would almost certainly rope us further inside the EU military permanent structured cooperation setup, as well as tie us down on procurement, on what arms we can buy and from where, for example, which for us would be a slippery slope. Funny that so many people want us to help the EU out while the neutral EU member, the Republic of Ireland, sits on the sidelines. So, over half the UK population takes more money out of the system than they put in. That's right, the Office for National Statistics says that the top 20% of taxpayers put in nearly half of all tax collected, and the top 10% put in over a third of it. The end result is that 36 million adults are now deemed to be dependent on the state. At the turn of the century, the net dependency ratio of the population was 40%, where the higher the number, the more people are dependent on the state. But that ratio now stands at 54%, up 14% in a little over 2 decades. But with the national debt climbing ever higher, just to keep things like the NHS, the police and the armed forces semi-operational, doesn't that make everyone in the country 100% reliant on our now 2.5 trillion quid and ever-growing debt? Anyway, these claims about dependency are, I think, a bit misleading, because it covers things like the NHS and the state pension as well. So with people living longer, with more complex needs, more people will become reliant on the state. And in a balanced economy, surely we'd have a roughly 50-50 split anyway. And is 46 to 54 that far off? And there are a lot of factors to consider here, where business and personal tax rates and wages are concerned. But the big issue really is, what do we want the state to use our money for? The more you demand it does, the more it has to take out of your income. Simples. So if you want it to do everything for you, it will cost 100% of your income, and you'll get back what the state decides you need to exist. And there are a lot of people who would gladly accept that state of affairs, believe it or not. Outcome: you will own nothing, but be happy. And now over to Richard.
The number one reason why the Tories are finished is simple. Nobody trusts them anymore. The government's response to you-know-what destroyed the lives of our children, the economy, the NHS, and as we are now finding out, a certain mandate and coercion may very well be the cause of us having to say goodbye to our young ones many years sooner than we should. They told us that if we did something, we would be protected from something. That was a lie. We were told that if we did something, it would be safe to be around our elderly relatives. That was also a lie. That thing we were supposed to do wasn't even tested to see if it prevented something from being passed on. They lied. They repeatedly lied. They always lie. People who spent their entire lives together couldn't say goodbye because of social distancing and the threat of passing something on via social contact. We were told this had to be done for the greater good, but they held parties as if something was of no threat at all. Why? We couldn't say goodbye to our loved ones. Yes, parents couldn't hold the hands of their departing children, and husbands and wives couldn't say that last one goodbye. We couldn't sing at the funerals of our loved ones, yet they could hold karaoke parties. Of all the broken promises of this government, their response to you-know-what was the worst. Maybe they acted as they did because of foolishness, or because they were forced into it by outside exterior forces. It matters not. The end result was the same. People left us and are continuing to leave us, and questions are now being asked as to why they continue to leave us. And anyone who gets in the way of the truth is an enemy of the people.